All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Fridays with Keenan's Cutting Edge. And happy St. Patrick's Day. As they say, we're all a little Irish on St. Patrick's Day. And this year, of course, it's on a Friday. So I hope you are enjoying the holiday in some fashion, maybe a green beer or some corned beef and cabbage. As you all know by now, my name is Jenna Labor, and I will be your host as we explore the dynamic world of Don Keenan's trial philosophy, The Cutting Edge. Those of you joining us live this afternoon have the opportunity to ask questions and interact with our speaker. So if you have a question, please type it into the comments section below, and we will be sure to address it. Episodes are released each week following the live broadcast, however, so if you're missing it today or you want to share it with somebody else, feel free to do so. Click the subscribe button and the alerts icon so you don't miss an episode. Today, we have Melinda Young with us talking about her takeaways from her time as the Keenan Law Firm Keenan Law Firm Fellow. She's going to talk about her fellowship experience. So we have a wonderful line of speakers who are going to be talking about the time they spent with Papa Don at the Keenan Law Firm, and Melinda is the second person we have talking about that today. Melinda is on staff with Keenan Law Firm now. She remained after her fellowship time with the Keenan Law Firm, and we will put her contact information in the description below in case you have any questions for her about her experience or the time she has spent working with the Keenan Law Firm. Melinda, you are the most recent fellow with the Keenan Law Firm. Tell us about your takeaways and what your experience was like working with the firm.
All right. Thanks, Jenna. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my name is Melinda Young, and I am the most recent fellow through the Keenan Law Firm Fellowship. And, prior to doing the fellowship, I was involved with KTI, and I'm still involved with KTI. I teach the rules course and the depositions course. And so I had, a fair amount and graduated and took the graduate courses as well. So I had a fair amount of background in the edge when I started the fellowship. I did hear Doug's podcast, and his sounded like his background was a little bit different in that I don't think he had as many KTI courses starting, but I had the benefit of having quite a few courses under my belt. But I was interested in really, digging in and just living and breathing it every day. And so that's why I was interested in the fellowship to begin with. I think my experience just overall has been unique in that it was most of my time in the fellowship was conducted remotely, which was another reason why I was able to do it when I did it, because that was the first time, as far as I know, that they were able to or open that up to doing remotely. COVID opened up so many things to, remote work that we hadn't previously done as much. So otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I know I've, heard how other prior fellows had, pretty much moved their entire lives to for a year to work with Mr. Keenan. But I was, I think, fortunate to not have to do that and still be able to get the benefit of the fellowship. So I did do some traveling so I could be at workshops and work days in person, but the day-to-day or week-to-week work was all done remotely, which has been really good. And I think, again, I I don't have the experience the other fellows did to know exactly how it compares, but I think I had the benefit of, or maybe one of the ways that the remote setup was helpful is that I did have, I did work with Mr. Keenan and learn from Mr. Keenan, but I also had the benefit of working closely and directly with the Keenan Law Firm partners as well as Mr. Keenan. So at times when Mr. Keenan was, involved in other things, I was able to still have regular contact and work with the partners, Mindy Bish and Greg Luther and David Hoey, which has really been amazing. Mr. Keenan is, the experience has been just fabulous in so many ways, but I've also been so really grateful to have the experience with all the partners as well. They all have different styles and different strengths and different teaching methods. So, and I've had the benefit of being able to work on all the different types of cases through the referring attorney program that the Keenan Law Firm works on. So it's been amazing getting to really learn a lot about a lot of different types of cases and ways to approach things. So it's been a really amazing experience. I certainly, the best experience of my legal career so far. So hands down. So that's been really great. So I have, several takeaways from the fellowship. It's been really interesting to prepare for this podcast, to really kind of think through the whole year of everything that I absorbed through that process. But the one thing that really stands out to me that Mr. Keenan said to me actually very early on in the fellowship was that, the edge is, it allows you to win a case and to get big verdicts in cases, which is great because we all love to, win our cases and get big verdicts. But he really, expressed to me that the edge, not only do you get those other benefits, but that it gives you more job satisfaction because it gives your client the attorney that they deserve. So, that really stood out to me when we talked about that early on, and continues to resonate with me. Because you develop such a close relationship with your clients, you build strong connections with them. And at the end of the day, they feel good. The clients feel good, not just because you were able to get them an amazing result, but because, we hear that people want to, people just want to be heard. And I think that in addition to that, sometimes people just need to have someone fighting for them. And so, the benefit that brings to your client and to you at the end of the day is, immeasurable, really. So that was a big takeaway for me. And I see it, still every day with how hard everyone at the Keenan Law Firm works for, the clients and the cases that they're working on to really give them the representation that they deserve. So that was a big takeaway for me. Another one was really the importance of understanding people. And, you know, being able to interpret or understand, you know, jurors, what their attitudes are, what their biases are. And really the thing that just has amazed me is how much of a master Mr. Keenan is at understanding people. Understanding what makes them tick and what they need. I personally have had so many experiences where, you know, he has been able to know sometimes before I did what I needed and how I was processing something. So even just seeing it with myself, it's been amazing. But you know, he is able to really just understand someone really quickly, faster than a lot of people, maybe faster than anyone I know. But, you know, we have throughout the fellowship and continuing, we do a focus group at least once a week at the Keenan Law Firm. And so it's been amazing to get to hear people talking about, you know, their thoughts and their ideas. And I would say, you know, before the fellowship, I mean, when I took the focus groups course early on with KTI, it really spoke to me, and it was something that I just loved from day one, because I felt like I'd spent a lot of years, you know, thinking that what I had to do to be a good lawyer was figure out how to convince jurors to agree with me. And focus groups was the first time that I realized, oh, I don't need to do that. I need to figure out what they think about it already and give them what they need. And so I, before the fellowship, was really motivated to do focus groups and did a lot of focus groups. But what I came to realize was that even though I could hear what focus group members were saying, you know, the words that they were saying, I didn't fully understand how what they said translated to what they would think about the case. So, you know, seeing, getting to see that process over and over and over again. I mean, I still go back to Mr. Keenan is a master. And, you know, I would see him get things out of people. And at the end, I would say, did you know that about that? You know, did you do some kind of, you know, intel, get some intel on these people beforehand? How on earth did you know that? And he wouldn't have done any intel, but he would, you know, he explains still today how he, you know, what was it that he either saw in their room, in the background, or observed them, you know, responding to what somebody else was saying, that allows him to really understand quickly where somebody's coming from. But I've definitely seen over, you know, my time that I am now much, you know, I understand much better what people are saying and how that is going to affect what they think about interpreting what they're saying, and understanding how that's going to affect what they think about the case. You know, it's so easy, I think, to hear people say something and to think, oh, I agree with that, so they must think like I do. And then you are presenting a case and they're, you know, debriefing it, and you're going, you know, how can they say that? That's not what they were saying in the, you know, in the beginning. And so, you know, it's really been an amazing experience to have really the practice of being able to, you know, to hear what people are saying and, practice understanding or kind of predicting, I guess, which ones would you, try to strike in a trial, which ones are going to be the rats. And that has just been a huge thing for me because, like I said before, and taking, the courses, I've understood, I think from a, more logical standpoint, these are the people that that aren't going to be good on a jury or are going to be good on a jury, but being able to really interpret what they're saying, which is difficult, and it's hard to even explain because it's oftentimes not what the words someone is actually saying. It's something else about their background or, a whole number of things that allows you to be able to really interpret well what they think and where they're going to land on your case. So that's been a huge help. I think about people who don't do focus groups on a regular basis. And I, which was, a time in the past in my career that, you would get that practice of picking a jury only when you were actually picking a jury, once, twice a year, sometimes more, sometimes you'd skip a year even. So that's been a huge thing for me. And I, Mr. Keenan, again, knowing what people need, including me before I knew myself, in the beginning, he would have me do these projects where I would work on, putting together a presentation about, jury selection and, or maybe just go back and watch this focus group and figure out how did we get that information from those people, which would require me through those assignments to have to watch clips over and over again. And I then, that really helped me really be able to hear the, kind of the nuanced information that was coming through from the jurors that I hadn't otherwise really recognized. So that has been a huge thing. And again, the partners, Mr. Keenan was instrumental in teaching me, but also the partners at the end of every focus group just really, pushing me to say, what did you hear? Why this person? Why that person? And so it's really, it's not just at the Keenan Law Firm, it's not just we run a focus group and then we all disconnect and don't talk about it. We spend a lot of time really talking through and understanding what we got and why we got it, and which has just been so amazingly helpful to me. So I really like that.
Melinda, for those of us, like maybe if you couldn't necessarily do the fellowship or, maybe you're thinking about it down the road or something like that, are some of the colleges helpful in that way? I mean, you're like an expert in the colleges because you've been to, almost all of them, it sounds like. Focus groups, advanced focus groups, how did those prepare you for this fellowship experience? How were they similar, different? How much more did the fellowship experience help you? Talk about that a little bit based on your section.
Yeah. So the focus group courses are great, but the voir dire courses are great as well. And I would say that's where I recall getting the most information about how to identify jurors that are going to be good for your case or problematic for your case. So I think that for me, taking the courses, because I think there's the undergrad and then the graduate level voir dire, which was the graduate level one was, super helpful as well. But for me, it was just, all of the information is there. And that's really the thing for me, is that I know there are some people that can just pick things up quickly and they get it immediately. But for me, that was something that, I could understand from a logical standpoint what they were telling me in the voir dire course, as to, why these people would be good or bad. But it was helpful for me to understand why, or to see it in practice probably over and over and over again. So, and to, I guess just have that experience of getting to do it regularly and getting the feedback from Mr. Keenan and the partners on whether I was right or wrong, or why, or what they thought. And so that was really helpful for me. And I would say for people that aren't doing, the fellowship, that they can still, everyone can still, there are a couple things. First, repeat the voir dire courses if you've already taken those, repeating those, but also conducting focus groups with other EDGE practitioners who, would have the same information, and then putting the time in, and whether you're doing focus groups with other EDGE practitioners or just yourself, putting the time into reviewing, thinking through what you just saw, and reviewing the video from it over and over and over, because it's amazing how much you can pick up from doing that, watching those videos. Because sometimes you'll get it can depend on the group dynamic. And sometimes it can be something that you said in early on that triggered something later on in the conversation. So I think, taking the courses, doing focus groups with other EDGE members, and spending the time to debrief with those attorneys afterwards, and videoing them and watching them, solely with the goal of just kind of practicing. What was it that person said that allowed me to, or allows me now, even if I didn't in the first place, to understand what got them, why they thought the way they did about my case. Because when you do that, you do also start to recognize similarities between people, and you can see, oh, okay, here's this person who said X, Y, and Z and thought, came to this decision about this case. And now I have another person who's saying something very similar. Are they going to think the same way? And when they do, that's when you can really start to recognize, okay, there's something about that idea or that opinion or that experience in somebody's background that causes them to think the way that they do about a certain type of case. So that would be my recommendation.
Great. Thank you. Okay. For those in the audience who are sending in questions, I will ask them as they make sense. Otherwise, I will make sure to ask them at the end so that we can let Melinda get through her list. So if anybody's out there waiting for me, we do have a couple of questions. So I think they'll fit better at the end. So go ahead.
Okay. So the next big takeaway for me was that really the focus groups, I didn't really recognize before. I told you I love focus groups and I do love them. And so a lot of my takeaways revolve around focus groups, but focus groups are really a scientific approach to a case, in that, you have to really think like a scientist in going into a focus group. I mean, yes, you can have a hypothesis about, what you think the jury thinks about your case, but you really have to run the experiment to know for sure. If you think about any other result that somebody's, scientist tells you that they have, you're wondering, you're asking, well, how did you conduct the experiment? Did you conduct it, correctly? Because if you didn't, your results are worthless. And
the right test in the first place.
Yes. Yeah. Did you run the right test? Why did you get the result that you got? And if you got a good result, testing it again to make sure you're going to get that again. And really the details are so much more important than I knew they were important, but they're even more important than I realized. What you say in voir dire and what you, the words that you use are so, it is so important. The order that the evidence is presented in I have seen throughout my fellowship cases where, the case bombs, and the only difference in the next focus group that we do is the order of the same information. It's just we've changed the order. And to see it then, now it works compared to what happened last time. And it's just, it's really fascinating to me how much of a difference it has in, what the jurors, how they think about the case and what they do with your case. So I think that, I would say if anybody out there is running their own focus groups and they're winning them all, that, I know we've heard this, but really, you're not doing it right. There's something wrong. And if you're doing them just to make yourself feel better and pat yourself on the back, then fine. But that, the results that you're getting in a focus group aren't going to be something you can trust in trial.
Surprised by what happens in trial. That's the way you're doing it.
Right. Yeah. So, I think that, recognizing the importance of testing it. And I know it can be really hard to know what was it that was wrong? Why was it, how do I know how to reorder the evidence or, what order to do it in? And that is something that, I probably don't know the answers to. I still, of course, rely on the partners and Mr. Keenan to know how to do that. So, which kind of leads me to my fourth takeaway, which is the value of the referring attorney groups at the Keenan Law Firm. In the beginning, I just didn't, I'd heard about the referring attorney groups. I hadn't ever referred a case in myself. I guess I had this idea that I don't know who I thought was referring these cases, or who should be referring the cases. But what I have come to learn is that there is value in referring a case in for lawyers really at every stage. On one hand, we have some really top-notch attorneys out there that have a proven track record, a great proven track record. And, but they're still referring cases in. We also have so many referring attorneys that maybe have a really great track record on one area of law. Maybe it's med mal or tractor trailer, but then they get a case in that they're not, they don't have a proven track record on. They don't have as much experience in, in something else. And so they can refer cases in. And then we have other attorneys who haven't yet had a killer result, but they want to get a killer result for their client. And so it's really a fabulous mix of different attorneys at all different levels. We have referring attorneys who are brand new. And this is one of their first cases that they're working up. So it's really a great way to be involved in the edge and really get kind of, the cutting edge practices and methods, because that is where we are testing so many things. So the RA groups are just really amazing. So, I would say to anyone out there, you should not see this as, the referring attorney group is only for, inner circle members or something like that. It's if you have a case and you're interested in seeing if we can help you, send in a contact one of us or contact me, and I can get it to the right person to see if it's something we can help you on. But there are just so many things that the referring attorney or the group does for the referring attorney, and so many ways in which that association really creates value for the referring attorney. First is we conduct focus groups on your case. So we conduct them and we interpret the results of them for you. So if you have concerns about whether you're doing it right or whether you're getting you're interpreting it right, and those are things that we can do for you. We also do adversarial focus groups. That was something before my fellowship that I had never seen actually done, had never been involved in myself. And wow, I mean, that's just an amazing process. I don't know if you've been through that, Jenna, but it's so interesting to see really your case. And there's so much work to get prepared for. But once you do them, I mean, didn't you feel like by the time you got to trial, like, I know how to do this. I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. It also forces you to cut down your information. I mean, it's cut down a lot more than it will be at trial, but it does force you to, do I really need this piece of evidence, or, what's important, what's not? Do I need to ask this question or not? Because I got a limited amount of time.
Right. Exactly. And I do think that in general, not only for your adversarial focus group, but for the case in general, that's one of the biggest things that I think that the Keenan Law Firm does, or the biggest ways in which they help referring attorneys is to keep the focus on what is important in the case. It is so easy for every attorney to get distracted, you're pulled in 1,000 different directions. Mm-hmm. And so it is so helpful to have, all of us at the Keenan Law Firm watching and able to not get, sucked into the minutia of things, but be able to really keep the focus on what's important, keep everyone out of the weeds on their case. So that is a huge value in and of itself. And I think another way in which the referring attorney group is so helpful is that all of us have the ability to allow fear to drive our decisions, and so causing attorneys to settle early or settle for too little, and so having the Keenan Law Firm involved to guide you through those times and help you know what the value of your case is, whether you should, whether you should settle your case and for how much you should settle your case, all of those things that can be so helpful when you are getting pulled in 100 different directions to keep you to keep you from making decisions that are driven by, fear or lack of focus or whatever. One of the most amazing things that I've seen through the referring attorney group is how the Keenan Law Firm really works to identify problems in the case in the beginning and identify, solutions, winning solutions for that problem. We've had in the tractor trailer group, for example, we've had, cases that we knew, at least the Keenan Law Firm knew, and maybe the referring attorney didn't really appreciate the importance of it, but in the beginning, maybe they did in some cases, but it became clear that this was a case that the facts were so, bad for the defense that they were going to, if the referring attorney did what they needed to do, that eventually they were going to realize they were going to be in trouble. And so then they were going to admit liability so they could keep all those bad facts out.
Yep.
And so we, have identified ways to, through visuals and other means of making sure that that those facts are something that even with admitting liability, they can't come out of the case. The court has to allow the plaintiff to present those facts. And I've just seen that over and over again with the tractor trailer cases in particular. And, the defense admits liability. They think that they're going to get away with it. And then when they don't, we've seen settlements and verdicts, for over $1 million and plus in admitted liability cases. So that is a really important part of what the referring attorney group can do. We've seen medical malpractice cases settling for actually going to trial, and one recently settling for, I think twice the Buffett number or something like that. Just really fantastic results. So it's all the ways in which the referring attorney group can keep attorneys, on the right track and help them get really amazing results. I also have to say that the referring attorney, especially for attorneys who are solo practitioners, who don't have, aren't working with other attorneys every day, the referring attorney groups really do become, it may sound cheesy to some people, but they really do become a family, a close group that, I have had more groups where we've shed tears at a workshop with referring attorneys before that I would, before my fellowship. I think in my experience, I had seen a lot of attorneys competing with one another and, seeing other personal injury attorneys as the competition. And not wanting to, really work with those attorneys. And so it's been really amazing to me to see how everyone involved in the Edge is so interested. And obviously they say it comes from the top down, and Mr. Keenan is so dedicated to sharing what he knows with all of us and helping everyone. And that continues throughout from Mr. Keenan down to the partners and down through the RA groups. We're all there to help each other. And it is so much, I hear people on your podcast a lot say, and it's so true, that it's so much easier to recognize problems or identify solutions or understand what the important details are in a case that's not your own than it is on your own case. And so, everybody works to help each other, which is just really amazing. And it's a safe place to share questions and thoughts and ideas and practice. And so it's really been an amazing experience. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to, I'm in my own firm in Kansas and don't have another attorney in the office. And so it's just a really great way to connect with everybody. So
I have one question from the audience that makes sense to insert here.
Okay.
So this is from David Crump up from my neck of the woods. And he asks, have there been any less than successful Keenan Law Firm / referring attorney results that you observed in your time as a fellow? And if so, what major lessons, takeaways, or common threads did they provide?
That is a great question, David. Hi, David, by the way. I've worked with David throughout the fellowship and gotten to know him. He's great.
He wants to know if any of his colleagues are losers. No, I'm totally just kidding. From my perspective, well, I'll say this. I think that, sure, there are cases that don't go maybe as well as you, as the referring attorney wanted, but I'm just trying to think through. I don't believe, or I'm not remembering any right now, that were just like big, just complete failures. Going to trial and get a 0 verdict. I mean, there are certainly times that the verdict isn't as high as, as everybody hoped, but I mean, that process, in those situations, it is so helpful to, again, have a support system who can not only support you through that difficult time, but help understand what went wrong, so that everyone can learn and improve. And so, but having said that, there aren't any, all of the small number of cases that I can think of off the top of my head that there wasn't the result that was expected or initially thought were still really big, great, results. It just wasn't maybe what everyone had hoped for. And sometimes it's been the Keenan Law Firm helping the referring attorney recognize the problems in the case and understanding when, okay, this is a case that does need settled. We've done what we can do. At one point, everyone hoped it would be, worth X, but now because of these facts, we know that it's got to get settled. But even then, we're helping strategize ways to still get the best value out of the case and do that. So, but yes, every time there is a result that's not what you'd initially hoped for, there's always a learning experience. As much as those experiences stink, they're good in the end for teaching us all something. So, and I think that is another big takeaway for me was the ability to understand or learning how to really understand the value of the case, the value of your case, and how to prove it. I have seen cases over the time in my fellowship and with the Keenan Law Firm that
that, the value of those cases are, well, I've seen cases that I have thought, I have had that case and I have settled it for a lot less than what this, this case is now getting in the referring attorney group. And so I've been able, it's been very helpful to see and understand the ways that the things to do to really improve the value of the case and get the right value out of the case, focusing on the right parts of the case. We see over and over and over again, so many times the things, almost all the time, most of the time, the things that we lawyers think are important in the case are not what jurors care about. So, having the understanding what things they do care about and presenting those things over what your lawyer brain thinks is, the better information or the right information. Putting the time and sometimes the money into the case, into the right experts or the right witnesses or the right demonstratives or whatever it is. It has been really amazing to me to like I said, to see cases that before doing the fellowship, I would have thought, I don't have any cases that, reach the value of the threshold value for a referring attorney group. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I have those cases. They're everywhere. So, that's been really amazing. Another big takeaway for me was the power of, or the importance, I guess, of emotion in your case. For me, I have a tendency to take a, kind of a clinical approach to things. I think that, I think maybe that comes from law school and other things, I'm sure, but really the importance of really tapping into the emotion in the case for your client, for the jurors. Just how important it is to drive the emotion, because you're not going to go in and get a great result by a clinical approach, which is hard for me. It's a very hard thing for me, but I see it over and over again, the huge impact that it has. This kind of goes back to, I guess, understanding people, but just it takes work to really tap into that emotion and where what is going to drive your verdict at the end of the day. So, and I think number 7 is really, I knew this again, kind of on a clinical level before doing the fellowship, but I would say maybe one of the biggest takeaways was the importance of having time to think about your case. You cannot get the kind of results that Mr. Keenan has gotten over his career and continues to get with the referring attorney groups on the fly. You don't just walk in and open the file and wing it at trial. If you do, it's a total fluke. And you have to have time for reflection and to think through solutions, to think about the right, every detail, the right wording to use in voir dire, like I said, the order of facts of your case, it all takes time. And so, I think we've all been conditioned in the US anyway to think that we have to be doing something all the time. But you have to, in order to get to really, utilize the EDGE methods and to execute it, you have to build in time to think through something and force yourself to think through it, from a different perspective than you have before, maybe. Understanding your client. And I mean, I'll tell you, and I don't think I can tell the exact details of this, but I did early on was involved in a focus group, but I didn't know anything about the case because I hadn't been around long enough to really know the details. And I saw Mr. Keenan do the voir dire in the focus group, and he was asking, I'm going to have to give an example rather than what he actually said, but, essentially, would you rather, he was kind of talking through ask the jurors, would they rather have, I don't know, would you rather lose your hearing or your sense of taste? And everybody talked through, and I'm, listening, and I'm thinking through like what my answer would be if I got this question. And then, however, what he was really asking about was something that was really maybe much more emotional, an emotional response somebody might have. But anyway, then he presents the case, and all of a sudden there's a point in the presentation where you realize in this case, both of those things happened. Both of those things were taken away. And so, I think, just seeing the response that all the jurors had to that case, it was a really big emotional response. And so, the amount of time that he put into just thinking through how to get people at this point later to have that reaction, how to say, what words to say in the beginning to have that reaction. It just takes time. It's not something that you can just, do on the fly, like I said. So I know it sounds like he spends so much time on these cases, and he does. The entire Keenan law firm really does. So, but it's necessary, and it results in really amazing results. So.
And that's why we always talk about cutting down your case list.
Oh, so sure. Yes.
I have that. Okay. All right. So let me get through a few of these questions here because I think we have 3. Okay. So Dennis Phillips has a couple. Okay. One, were you able to continue your own practice during your KTI fellowship?
Yes, I was. And yes. So, but because, like I said, I don't have another attorney. And so I know Doug talked about doing like 2 weeks on and two weeks off. I think that I started thinking that I would do it that way, not exactly in the same way since I was by, doing it remotely, but in my mind, at least I was thinking I would do, maybe 2 days a week on, 3 days off, or vice versa. It didn't end up working out that way because since I am a solo practitioner, I didn't have somebody who could sign things for me. And, I might have a day that I'm working on all, Keenan Law Firm projects, but I have one, quick 15-minute Zoom conference with the court on one of my cases. So I wasn't able to really kind of divide it out as Doug talked about, but it worked for me. So yeah, I did not end up having to, or I was able to continue handling my own cases. I had already, I will say prior to that, had already started working on reducing the number of cases I had already. So I wasn't taking, a huge caseload. I was still managing a lot, and still am managing. both practices, but I was able to do both. So it worked out.
Thanks. All right. Also from Dennis, did you go to trial with any of the KLF attorneys?
Not yet. I've been ready to go to trial on a couple of cases that have gotten continued or excuse me, or settled at the last minute. So I have not yet gotten to trial, but we have lots on the calendar. So I'm sure I will very soon.
I think we should have you back after that, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be great.
That would be awesome to hear about that. So let's put a pin in that. All right. And then finally, Ashley Levitt says, hi, Melinda. At what stage are these focus groups taking place? This is a good question. Time seems scarce when preparing for trial, and I'm wondering how far out any wait list would be for the referring attorney groups. It's kind of a two-part question, actually. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, so at the Keenan Law Firm, we taking a case into the referring attorney group, we do a focus group like right away. I mean, we do a focus group before we even agree to take the case. And every case is different, but we do 5 to 10 to 15 focus groups on a case that starts with, like I said, before we even agree to take the case, we do a focus group, and then based on what we see, that helps decide whether or not we're going to agree to take the case in. And then from there, we are testing different, pieces of evidence and order of presentation and all those other things. So we're doing it from the beginning. Now, so I think the other part of the question was the timeline for referring attorney. So ideally, of course, it would be before you would contact us about a case before you even file suit. Early on. If you have already filed suit, that doesn't mean that we wouldn't take the case, but if it's too close to trial, we're certainly not going to get involved, after the close of discovery, for example. You definitely would want us involved in a time frame that we could guide you through discovery. And, at the Keenan Law Firm, the majority of the work is done really before you even file suit. So, the farther you are in on litigation, the less likely we would be to get involved. But so the earlier the better, because we can really help you on the front end. So.
Yep, highly. And I will say, I think with my referring attorney case, we were a little bit farther in than was ideal. So, if you think it's worth submitting and seeing what happens, just in case it's a case where, they feel like, I don't know, we'll take it anyways. But yeah,
right. Very true.
Yeah. And I think one thing that we say all the time on the podcast, and is true, we hear it all the time in the colleges and the seminars, to do a case the Edge way, it takes a lot of work. And that's why it's really hard to take something at the last minute and get it ready the Edge way for trial and get the really good Edge result that you want, because there just isn't the time to do the work, the real hard nitty gritty dirt under your nails work it takes to do a case like this. So would you agree, Melinda?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. It really does.
It's not a punishment like you waited so, too bad, so sad.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Awesome. So that's it for our audience questions. Thank you so much, Melinda. Did you have any final thoughts before we wrap up here today?
I don't necessarily, but it sounds like you're going to post my information. So if anybody has questions that you think of afterwards that you want to email me, feel free to do that. I'm here. I'm happy to chat with anybody, help you with anything you need. So
awesome. Thanks you so much for being a resource and for being here with us today, Melinda. And thank you to all of you who joined us this week for Fridays with Keenan's Cutting Edge. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for being engaged, and thank you for listening. If you liked today's episode, please give a thumbs up, feed the YouTube algorithm, and let the powers that be know that you find the content is interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up for alerts so you won't miss an episode. Next week, we're going to have a replay of a previously aired popular episode, but I will be back with you live again on March 31st with Clayton Seifert. And I believe he's going to be talking about a recent verdict he got. If not, it will be another super interesting and enlightening topic involving EDGE principles and practices. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone, and I'll see you next time.